Assalamu alaikum dear students. With Cambridge O-Level Pakistani Studies, this is Amreen Muzammil. The course code of this course is 2059. In today's lecture, we are covering the topics about the history and culture of Pakistan. So why we are going to learn about the history and culture of Pakistan? The history and culture of Pakistan enables you to gain a full understanding of the epic struggle which resulted in the formation of the new Muslim country in 1947 and the challenges it faced in its 50 years of existence. We are covering section number 1, that is cultural and political background to the Pakistan movement. In today's lecture, we are covering chapter number 1, that is how successful were the religious thinkers in spreading Islam in the subcontinent during the 18th and 19th centuries. So, why we are going to learn about all these? We are going to learn how important were the religious reforms of Shah Waliullah, to learn about the influence Sayyid Ahmad Barelvi exerted in the revival of Pakistan, to learn how influential was Haji Shariatullah and the Faraizi movement. We are covering chapter number 1, how successful were the religious thinkers in spreading Islam in the subcontinent during the 18th and 19th centuries. The topics which we are going to cover in today's lecture are the religious reforms of Shah Waliullah, Sayyid Ahmad Barelvi and the revival of Islam, the Jihad movement and the Mujahideen, Haji Shariatullah and Faraizi movement. At the beginning of the 18th century, the Mughals ruled India. The Mughal Empire grew weak by 1700 as kings spent too much money on palaces and wars. In addition, the large population of Hindus in India began to revolt against their Muslim rulers. Great Britain took advantage of this weakness, conquered India, and removed the last Mughal emperor from power in 1858. So, by the middle of 19th century, external forces and internal weaknesses meant that the one mighty empire was gone. Fortunately, a number of great Muslim reformers emerged who helped bring about a revival of Muslim fortune and placed Muslims on the road to an independent Pakistan. The great Muslim reformers of that time are Shah Waliullah. Shah Waliullah made the Quran accessible to large numbers of Muslims by translating it into Persian. Another great Muslim reformer was Sayyid Ahmad Barelvi, who launched a movement to restore Islam to its original purity. Another great Muslim reformer was Haji Shariatullah, who launched Faraizi movement. So let's discuss about the Shah Waliullah early biographical details. Shah Waliullah was a prominent scholar of Delhi. His date of birth is 21st of February 1703. His real name was Qutubuddin and his father's name was Shah Abdul Rahim. His father Shah Abdul Rahim was a Sufi and founding member of Madrasa Rahimia in Delhi. Shah Waliullah memorized Quran by the age of 7. By the age of 16, he completed a standard curriculum of Hanafi law, geometry, arithmetic, and logic. Shah Waliullah received his spiritual and academic education from his father. He guided knowledge of hadith, tafsir, metaphysics, logic. He gained this knowledge in his boyhood. In 1718, he started teaching at Madrasa Rahimia. In 1724, he performed Hajj. During 1724 till 1732, he studied under the famous scholar Sheikh Abu Tahir, and in 1732, he returned to Delhi. By the time he returned to Delhi in 1732, the decline of Mughal Empire has started. At that time, the social, political, and religious condition of Muslims were very poor. At that time, he identified the causes for the decline and also pointed out the remedies. So let's have a look on Shah Waliullah beliefs. During his time in Arabia, Shah Waliullah thought deeply about the problems faced by Muslims in the Mughal Empire. The empire was in decline and Muslims were disunited and vulnerable to attacks on their religion. Shah Waliullah realized that reform could not come from the weak leadership in Delhi and that it had to come from within the Muslim community itself. His another belief was he believed that many of the problems of the Muslim resulted from their incomplete knowledge of the Quran and about Islam in general, and it was necessary that Quranic teachings become more accessible to the people. He believed all political, social, and economic behavior should be based on Islamic principles. A major problem for the Muslim community was the way it was divided into sectarian groups such as Sunnis and Shias. Shah Waliullah wanted them to concentrate on the fundamental principles of Islam and put aside their differences, believing that this would create a more united community. He believed that it was essential to follow the moral and spiritual principles of Islam in order to create a good society. Un-Islamic principles were not acceptable in any area of society, whether politics, economics, or just the day to day lives of the individual Muslims. So, let's have a quick look about the Shah Waliullah's work. Shah Waliullah worked hard to ensure that he was a role model for other Muslims. His deep understanding of the Quran, Hadith, Fiqh, and Tasawwuf made him a highly knowledgeable scholar at an early age. Since he believed that an emphasis on Quranic teaching was vital to Muslims, he translated the Quran into Persian. Few Muslims spoke Arabic, and so the Quran had not been widely studied previously. Now it could be understood by a large number of Muslims. Later, his two sons, Shah Abdul Qadir and Shah Rafi, translated the Quran into Urdu, which meant that many more people could study it. In addition to translating the Quran, Shah Waliullah wrote 51 books in Persian and Arabic. Amongst the most famous were Hujjatullah al-Balighya and Azalat-e Aqfa. He also wrote an account of the first four caliphs of Islam in a way that was acceptable to both Shias and Sunnis. He hoped that this would help to heal the division between them. His writings brought him great fame and prestige and enabled him to have influence in other areas too. For example, in economics, he emphasized the need for social justice and for peasants and craftsmen to be truly valued for their contribution to the economy. One of Shah Waliullah's most important contribution to the Muslim community was his organization of opposition to the Marathas, who were threatening to overrun the Mughal Empire from the south. He realized that the Muslims had to unite to deal with this threat, and that of the Sikhs who were attacking in the north. Shah Waliullah wrote to all the Muslim nobles, calling on them to join together to save the Mughal Empire. It was partly his influence which helped to persuade Ahmad Shah Abdali to intervene. He joined forces with local Muslim leaders and defeated the Marathas at the Battle of Panipat in 1761. However, despite encouragement from Shah Waliullah, the Muslim leaders did not unite to take advantage of the defeat of the Marathas. Perhaps if they had done so, the Muslims would not have soon found themselves under non Muslim rule. Let's have a quick understanding about the importance of Shah Waliullah's contribution. Shah Waliullah's contributions toward Islamic revival was extremely important for a number of reasons. He was one of the first Muslim thinkers to state that the decline of the Mughal Empire and the vulnerable position of the Muslims were due to a neglect of the principles of Islam. He believed that if the decline in the position of the Muslims was to be stopped, there had to be spiritual and moral regeneration. He showed how this regeneration might take place. The Madrasas Rahimia continued to play a vital role in teaching Islamic principles and researching Islamic thoughts. His writing in Persian made Islamic teaching available to a large number of Muslims who had not been able to understand Arabic. He believed that Muslims could only prosper if they followed proper Islamic customs and did not indulge in social evils. Shah Waliullah provided the inspiration for all Muslims to lead a pure life based on the belief that antisocial attitude incurred the displeasure of God. He also showed that a Muslim revival could only take place if there was an acceptance that sectarian division was to stop. Muslims had to concentrate more on the basic principles of Islam and not allow the differences between them to lead to conflict. He tried to build bridges between the different Muslim sects and to unite the community. He tried to do this by organizing opposition to the Marathas and uniting Muslims by emphasizing the importance of jihad against a common enemy. Like all great reformers, Shah Waliullah's influence continued long after his death. Not only did his writings survive and translated in many languages, but the Madrasa Rahimiyya continued to flourish as his sons carried forward his work and teachings. Many future Islamic leaders were inspired by him to fight for the good of the Muslim community. Another great Muslim reformer of that time was Sayyid Ahmad Barelvi. Let's have a quick look about his early biographical details. Sayyid Ahmad was born near Lucknow in the small town of Rai Bareli in 1786. His father died whilst he was still young, and in 1806 he moved to Delhi and enrolled in the Madrasa Rahimiyya. For 2 years, he studied under the sons of Shah Waliullah, learning the Quran and the Hadith. Sayyid Ahmad was more a man of action than a scholar, and in 1810 he joined the forces of Amir Khan, who was a Pathan military leader. It was at that time that Sayyid Ahmad learned how to use European weaponry. He showed himself to be so able that he was given command of a group of soldiers. In 1817, Sayyid Ahmad returned to Delhi, where his work became important in trying to restore Islam to its original purity. Let's have a quick look about Sayyid Ahmad Barelvi believes. As a man of action, Sayyid Ahmad was an ideal person to act as a leader to work against British power in India and to try to ensure that Muslims were ruled by fellow Muslims. He believed that the freedom of Muslims could only come as a result of armed struggle against the foreign and non Muslim forces which were oppressing them. He believed that there was a need to end the evils that had corrupted Islamic society. Consequently, even when he served as an army officer, he surrounded himself with men of great piety who were prepared to reject worldly wealth and work for improving the moral and intellectual lives of Muslims. The British had ensured that the Mughal emperors had little real power and the Sikhs were dominant in the Punjab. Sayyid Ahmad founded the Jihad movement, which called the armed struggle to overthrow non Muslim oppression and restore Muslim power. He believed that once his was done, Islam could be regenerated and rescued from beliefs and customs contrary to Islamic beliefs, which had crept into everyday life. Let's have a quick look about Sayyid Ahmad Shah Barelvi's work. In 1821, Sayyid Ahmad went for Hajj. Before going, he traveled across India and held meetings in order to spread his beliefs about jihad. When he returned from Arabia in 1823, he was ready to take action. At this time, the Punjab was under the control of the sixth regime of Ranjit Singh, who had also extended his authority into the northwest frontier. The Muslims suffered under Sikh rule because they were unable to carry out many of their religious practices. Even the call to prayer was banned in some places. Sayyid Ahmad thought that this was intolerable and decided that the Punjab was a place to launch his jihad against non Muslim rulers. Sayyid Ahmad toured the Punjab and the northwest frontier to enlist men to fight the Sikhs. He travelled many hundreds of miles to raise a Mujahideen force. His travels took him through Rajasthan, Sindh, Balochistan, and into Afghanistan. However, he found that the Afghan troops were suspicious of each other and not always prepared to join him in his jihad. In 1826, Sayyid Ahmad established his headquarters near Peshawar. He sent a message to Ranjit Singh telling him that he must allow Muslims freedom of worship or face the Mujahideen. Ranjit Singh dismissed the ultimatum, so Sayyid Ahmad was forced to attack first at Okara on 21st December 1826 and then shortly afterwards the Sikhs suffered defeat. Sayyid Ahmad victories established him as a successful military leader and encouraged other tribes to join the Mujahideen. Soon, the army numbered over 80,000 strong. A major problem for Sayyid Ahmad, however, was that his army consisted of men from many different communities which disagreed over how the campaign was fought. The Sikhs tried to exploit these differences by calling his army un-Islamic. They claimed that by following the teachings of Shah Waliullah, Sayyid Ahmad's forces were not true Muslims. This view was not accepted by the Muslim leaders. In 1827, they agreed unanimously that Sayyid Ahmad should assume the authority of an Imam. His word on religious matters was considered binding, and his increased authority helped to unite the various Muslim groups forming the Mujahideen force. Sayyid Ahmad was preparing to attack the fort of Attock when he encountered an army of 35,000 Sikhs near Okara. What he did not know was that Yar Muhammad Khan, a Pathan chief who had joined his army, had been bribed by the Sikhs. First, one of his servants tried to poison Sayyid Ahmad, then Yar Muhammad Khan deserted the battlefield along with his men, thus creating confusion and chaos in the ranks, which ultimately led to the defeat of Sayyid Ahmad's forces. He had no other option but to move his headquarters to the safety of Panchtarar near Kashmir. Although Yar Muhammad was later killed in battle against the Mujahideen, his brother Sultan Muhammad Khan also waged war against Sayyid Ahmad. This constant campaigning against fellow Muslims was not what Sayyid Ahmad wanted, so he moved his forces to Balakot, hoping to liberate Kashmir and Hazara. Balakot was thought to be safe and it was protected on three sides by mountains. But once again, Sayyid Ahmad was betrayed when local leaders told the Sikhs of a way through the mountains. They made a surprise attack on the forces of Sayyid Ahmad. The Battle of Balakot was a fiercely contested one, though the Mujahideen had been taken by surprise by a much larger Sikh army. Then fought bravely but were heavily outnumbered and unable to resist the Sikhs. 600 Mujahideen soldiers were killed, including Sayyid Ahmad and his commander Shah Ismail. Let's have a look on the importance of his contribution. The defeat of the Mujahideen in the Battle of Balakot was a serious setback for the Jihad movement and it struggled to survive in the following years. The movement continued on its in the hills of the northwest frontier until 1863 when the British sent a large army to deal with the Mujahideen threat. Even then, the movement survived through the determination of its followers. The work of Sayyid Ahmad had been very influential because it was the first example in Indian history of a movement formed to free the Muslims from the tyranny of non Muslims or foreign rulers. It was not a movement in order to place a particular leader in power, but instead to achieve religious and spiritual freedom. The Jihad movement was a uniting force for Muslims. Many of Sayyid Ahmad's soldiers had been spiritual leaders or teachers. The fact that they were prepared to die for their cause was an inspiration to all Muslims. The Jihad movement is regarded by many historians as the forerunner of the Pakistan movement in India. Sayyid Ahmad's efforts were an inspiration to all Muslims in defending their religion, their culture, and their freedom. Those Muslims who later campaigned for their own homeland saw Sayyid Ahmad as an example of a Muslim fighting for the Muslims' cause in much the same way, since he too wanted to see a state which was based on the principles of Islam. Another great Muslim reformer of that time was Haji Shariatullah. Let's take a look of early biographical details of Haji Shariatullah. Haji Shariatullah was born in 1781 in Faridpur district in East Bengal. His father was a farmer and his family was not very well off. In 1799, he traveled to Arabia on pilgrimage and stayed there for the next 19 years. He became greatly influenced by the beliefs of Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab. On his return to East Bengal, he started his own reform movement designed to purify Islam of the Hindu influences. Haji Sharatullah died in 1840, but his work was carried on by his son Mohsinuddin. Let's take a quick look over Haji Shariatullah's beliefs. Haji Shariatullah believed that the miserable condition of the Muslims in India led to the country being Darul Harb. This meant an area where non-Muslims ruled. Haji Shariatullah said that in such areas Friday and Eid prayers should not be offered. He also believed that the Muslim community had moved away from true Islamic practice. He wanted them to return to what he thought was a proper observation of Islamic duties called farais. This was why his movement was called the Faraizi movement. The Faraizi movement supported the idea of jihad against the non-Muslims who were undermining the true principles of Islam. Let's take a quick look over Haji Shariatullah's work. Haji Shariatullah found that the Muslims of the East Bengal had been oppressed both by the Hindus and by the British. Previously, the Muslims have been the ruling class in Bengal, but when the British took over, they worked with the local landowners, zamindars, who were mainly Hindus. The Muslims had also been given few opportunities in education and employment. As a result, many important Muslim families had been reduced to near poverty. Haji Shariatullah started the Faraizi movement to restore the pride of the Muslims and remove what he thought were the Hindu practices which had crept into their worship. Emphasis was placed on praying for past sins and on promising to lead a righteous life in the future. An important part of this reform would be to follow the religious obligation of a true Muslim. The success of Haji Shiratullah movement caused great concern amongst the Hindus of East Bengal. In that region, Hindu and British landlords had carried economic operation of the Muslim peasants. The landlords did not want Haji Shiratullah creating difficulties for them and were very alarmed that the Muslim cultivators were uniting in a desire to improve their lives and purify their religion. They drove Haji Shariatullah out of the region to Nawabganj in Dhaka district, where he died in 1840. His work, however, was carried on by his son Mohsinuddin, who continued to work to improve the positions of Muslims in East Bengal and introduce important economic measures. Like he divided East Bengal into areas called circles, each under the control of Khalifas. They were responsible for the social and spiritual welfare of the people in the area. He helped the peasants to oppose the excessive taxes imposed by the Hindu and British landlords. Mohsinuddin's opposition to the payment of taxes led to unrest in East Bengal, but he went even further and threatened to declare a jihad against the British government. The British arrested him and put him in prison. After his death in 1860, the Faraizi movement declined. Let's talk about the influences of the work of Haji Shariatullah. The Faraizi movement was influential for a number of reasons. It gave encouragement to Muslims at a time when they were demoralized by the oppression they suffered from the Hindus and the British. It brought about a spiritual revival which led to a revival in the Islamic religion in East Bengal. Hindu influences were removed from Islamic practices. It also had an important political and economic impact. The Bengal peasants became united in their opposition to the harsh treatment they received. They became more aware of their rights, and the political unity began to grow amongst them. This was to prove important in later years as the Muslims' demands for their own homeland grew. It might be said that some of the seeds of the Pakistan movement were sown by the Faraizi movement. So, dear students, thank you so much for listening. It's all from the first chapter. Kindly share your queries and feedback. In next lecture, we would be learning about what were the causes and consequences of the decline of the Mughal Empire.